They said women weren't built to fly the Warthog into hell. But when over 400 soldiers were trapped in Gray Canyon, surrounded by missiles and fire, she didn't wait for permission. Captain Reagan Holt took her A-10 straight into the storm. One engine gone, tail shredded, alarms howling in her ears. She never stopped flying. 11 minutes of chaos. One impossible rescue. And when she landed with half a plane still burning, nobody ever questioned her place in the sky again. Before we begin, tell us, where are you watching from? And if you believe honor and courage still matter, help keep their legacy alive. The desert wind screamed across Falcon Ridge Air Station. A column of black smoke cut through the dawn sky as a battered A-10C thundered in low. One engine trailing fire. Its right wing looked like it had been chewed by a monster. The fuselage scorched black. Ground crews sprinted toward the runway, shouting over the roar. "Kill the power, you're burning fuel." But the pilot didn't wait for help. The canopy hissed open. Captain Reagan Holt climbed out on her own. Her flight suit was torn, streaked with dried blood and sand. For a heartbeat. No one spoke. Every tech, every pilot on the line just stared, because they knew the A-10 in front of them should not have been flying. Narrator voice, calm, deliberate. They said women weren't built to fly the Warthog into hell. But that morning, 428 soldiers were still breathing, because she refused to listen. 3 hours earlier, Falcon Ridge had been quiet, until the base alarm shattered the calm at 0511. Red lights strobed down the hangar bay, and the intercom crackled with urgency. "All flight crew to briefing. Gray Canyon emergency. Repeat, this is not a drill." Reagan Holt was already up. She'd been reading weather charts and cleaning her sidearm like she always did before sunrise. Inside the war room, the air was thick with sweat and noise. Maps glowed on the wall, streaked in red and orange from live satellite feeds. Colonel Brent Calloway stood at the center, face pale under the fluorescent lights. "Ranger 3 is pinned in Gray Canyon," he said flatly. 428 men still alive. 61 can't move on their own. We've already lost 2 medevac birds trying to reach them. He pointed to a storm front crawling toward the map. Visibility drops below 400 feet in 2 hours. Once that sandstorm hits, we lose everyone down there. Major Tyler Briggs leaned forward, knuckles on the table. "Sir, that valley's layered with SAM sites. This isn't close air support, it's suicide. No aircraft can stay under radar and survive more than one pass." Calloway looked around the room. "Command can't authorize heavy bombing. Civilians nearby. We need someone to clear a corridor. 11 minutes of silence overhead so the last Blackhawk can go in." Silence fell. Pilots shifted in their seats, avoiding each other's eyes. Nobody volunteered. Reagan studied the map ridgelines, wind patterns, elevation. She knew every contour by instinct, the same way she knew the weight of her aircraft. "I'll take it," she said quietly. Heads turned. Briggs blinked, like he hadn't heard right. "Captain, that canyon's a graveyard. You go in. You don't come out." Reagan's tone didn't change. "Then I'll make it a graveyard for someone else." Her voice was low, but it cut through the room like steel. Briggs tried again. "This isn't about courage. It's math. 1 A-10 can't silence a valley full of anti-air." Reagan didn't look at him. "It only needs to last 11 minutes, another pilot muttered to his neighbor, thinking she wouldn't hear. "She's good. Sure, but we've never let her run suppression alone. Command will hang us if she goes down." Reagan turned slightly, eyes cold. "Then remember who said that. I'll want it on record." Calloway exhaled hard. "Widow 7, he said, using her call sign for the first time that morning. "You're cleared for launch. Hold the sky for Ranger 3 as long as you can." Reagan nodded once. No salute. No speech. She turned toward the hangar doors while the rest sat frozen. Chief Owen Laird jogged beside her as she climbed the ladder to her Warthog. "Ma'am, your bird's pre-flighted and fueled. I still think you're crazy." She smiled faintly. "That makes 2 of us." She reached into her chest pocket and touched an old data chip, the kind used for radio recordings. A faint static whisper from another mission long ago. A voice she could never forget. The engines whined alive, deep and guttural. The twin turbines shook the ground, dust curling around the landing gear. Every wrench in the hangar rattled. Widow 7, tower control. You are go for departure. Copy that, she replied. Let's make some noise. The Warthog rolled forward into the sunrise, armor glinting dull silver under the rising heat. As she pulled onto the runway, the base fell silent again, even the doubters watching from the glass. Because everyone there understood one thing. If she failed, 428 names would vanish before noon. And if she succeeded, no one would ever question her place in that cockpit again. The desert floor blurred beneath the wings. Captain Reagan Holt kept the A-10C less than 300 feet above the ground, flying faster than radar could track. Dust rippled behind her like smoke from a comet. The first radio call came through static. Widow 7, this is Ranger Actual. We're taking fire from the North Slope trucks with mounted guns. Holt keyed the mic. Copy. Ranger Actual, mark your position with orange smoke. Through the haze, a flare burst open on the canyon floor. That was all she needed. She rolled left, nose down, and let the GAU-8 roar. The sound was thunder in metal form. 700 rounds a minute tearing through steel and rock. Enemy fire vanished in the storm of tungsten. Target neutralized, Holt said. Keep your heads down. I'm not done yet. Her voice was calm, almost too calm for the chaos below. Ranger Actual came back over the radio, breathless. God bless that sound. They're falling back, but before the cheer faded, a sharp tone screamed in Holt's headset. Missile launch, bearing 080. She slammed the stick left, dropping altitude, popping flares that burned white against the sand. A streak of fire sliced past the canopy and exploded harmlessly in the rocks. Widow 7, they've got SAM's repeat. They have surface-to-air capability, I noticed, she said through clenched teeth. Her right hand tightened on the throttle. She skimmed the canyon wall, flying so low the left wingtip brushed the dust. The A-10's belly armor sparked as it scraped a ridge. To anyone else, this would have been madness. To Holt, it was control. In the command room at Falcon Ridge, Colonel Calloway listened to the radio feed in silence. Chief Laird muttered, "That valley's crawling with radar locks. Who the hell armed them like this?" Calloway's jaw tightened. Someone who wants this mission to vanish. Back over the canyon. Holt caught movement in the clouds, 2 pickup trucks hauling anti-aircraft guns into position. Ranger Actual, new targets East Ridge, she called. Roger, we see them. Too far for small arms. Not for me, she said. She pulled the trigger again. Tracer lines stitched the trucks in half. The valley shook under the echo of cannon fire. Below, soldiers cheered without thinking. They'd just seen a Warthog dance through hell. Then another alarm. Lock on. Multiple sources. 3 new missiles streaked toward her from the western ridge. Holt dumped chaff and flares, dove hard, then pitched up through the smoke. 2 missiles lost track. The third didn't. It clipped the tail stabilizer, blowing a hole the size of a door. The A-10 bucked sideways. Warning lights flashed like strobe lights across her dashboard. She steadied the stick with both hands, breathing slow. Widow 7. You hit Calloway's voice cut in. Still flying, she said. Recommend everyone stays clear of my airspace. Negative. We can scramble back up. No time. She scanned her instruments. The tail was crippled, but she could still maneuver. Every minute she held the sky was another minute those men stayed alive. On the canyon floor, the Black Hawk medevac circled behind the ridge, waiting for her signal. Widow 7. Dust off 2-1 standing by. Go now, Holt ordered. 11 minutes of silence starts now. She made another pass, low and deliberate. Rounds walked across the ridge, shredding gun nests that tried to rise again. The ground erupted in dust and smoke. Inside the helicopter, a medic yelled, "We're in loading casualties on Holt's radar." 10 new threats appeared. They were closing fast. She switched to manual countermeasures, pre-programming bursts every 5 seconds. Her voice was steady over the open channel. Stay low. Keep moving. I'll make them look at me. Not you. The Warthog turned into the storm again. A burst of flak hit her left wing. Metal screamed. Smoke filled the cockpit. Reagan coughed once, wiped blood from her lip, and kept firing. Ranger Actual's voice broke through static. "Dust-off's clear. We've got 64 wounded out. That's half our immobile." Holt smiled faintly. "Copy that. Let's finish the other half." Calloway came back, tense. "Widow 7, you've done enough. Get home before that storm buries you." She didn't answer. Instead, she banked south, where the last group of wounded still waited. Major Briggs whispered from the operations deck. "She's going back in. With that damage, she won't make it." Laird muttered, "Then pray the Warthog remembers what she taught it." The radio clicked once more, Holt's voice, calm as ice. "Ranger Actual, I see your southern position. Hold your line. I'm coming back." And she pushed the throttle forward, diving straight into the fire. The storm was eating the sky. Wind slammed against the A-10's fuselage, lightning flashing across the horizon like artillery fire. Inside the cockpit, alarms wailed a red blur of damage warnings and fuel imbalance lights. Reagan Holt's voice stayed level. "Ranger Actual, confirm your southern group's location." The reply came through static coordinates 279er by 641. "We're pinned. No cover. They'll overrun us within minutes." She could hear men shouting behind the transmission, gunfire cracking closer. Her thumb rested on the throttle. "Copy, Ranger Actual. I'm coming." Colonel Calloway's voice broke in over command frequency. "Widow 7, negative. You've lost control authority on the right stabilizer. You push that bird another run and you're not bringing it back." Reagan didn't blink. "Then I'll keep it airborne long enough to matter." Major Briggs cut in, frustrated. "Reagan, don't be a hero. You've done your part." Her eyes narrowed. "That's what they said last time." The cockpit fell quiet except for the hiss of wind. She remembered another voice, young, tired, and scared. "Widow 7, if you can still hear us, don't leave us here." That was Al Qadim Valley. 2 years ago. She'd been ordered to pull out when her ground team was ambushed. Command had called it a necessary withdrawal, but she'd heard their screams fade through static until it became silence. That silence had followed her into every mission since. Now, in Gray Canyon, it spoke again. Reagan flipped the comms to private. "Tower, disregard previous orders. I'm making a southern run," Laird whispered on the background channel. "Ma'am, you'll kill the hydraulics if you bank again. Then I'll fly without them," she answered. Her left hand adjusted trim manually, keeping the wounded A-10 level against the gusts. The stick trembled like a living thing, fighting her every inch. She dropped altitude until the radar tone vanished. The canyon walls swallowed her whole. Somewhere below, flashes of gunfire flickered through the sandstorm. "Ranger Actual, mark with smoke," she shouted. "Nothing. Only static." Then, faintly, "We're hit. Marking now." A dim red plume rose through the haze. She dove straight toward it. The GAU-8's barrels spun up with a growl that shook the air itself. "Bert!" The mountainside disintegrated. Enemy armor melted under the line of fire. The recoil slammed through her chest, but she didn't stop. One last gun nest spat tracer rounds that pinged off her nose cone. She corrected by instinct, firing a burst that silenced it forever. The A-10 lurched. A new explosion tore through the right wing root. Pressure alarms screamed hydraulic failure imminent. "Widow 7, eject, that's an order." Calloway's voice cracked through the noise. Reagan shook her head, eyes locked on the canyon floor. "Eject into what?" "Sir Sand and shrapnel." Her left engine coughed, belching smoke. The right engine sputtered but held. She gritted her teeth. "You're not dying yet. Neither am I." The southern ridge erupted in flame. Below, the last of the Rangers began pulling the wounded onto stretchers. Their medic yelled into his radio, "They're moving! We can get them out!" A flash of movement caught her eye. 3 enemy trucks racing along the ridge, launching more rockets. She banked hard, nearly blacking out. Blood pooled at the edge of her vision. The targeting reticle flickered. She waited until the trucks aligned in one line. Then she pressed the trigger. The GAU-8 spat hellfire. All 3 detonated at once, metal raining down the cliffs. The concussion wave tossed her plane sideways, almost into the rocks. For a second, she thought it was over. Then the horizon steadied barely. Her knuckles were white against the controls. "Ranger actual. Status," she gasped. "Dust off 2-1 inbound, we've got everyone, you cleared the corridor." Her head fell back against the seat. Good. The storm howled louder, drowning out every other sound. Fuel was almost gone. Both engines sputtered. Her instruments blinked like dying stars. She looked once more toward the valleymen below, waving at the sky, tiny shadows against the firelight. Then she keyed the mic to base. "Widow 7 to Falcon Ridge. Mission accomplished. Bringing her home if she lets me." The reply came faint, uncertain. "Understood. Godspeed." "Widow 7. Reagan gave a tired smile. "God's busy. I'll fly myself." The altimeter began to drop. Every gust felt like a punch to the wings, but she kept the nose up, dragging the crippled Warthog toward the horizon. Behind her, Gray Canyon burned under the fading sun. 428 soldiers still alive, and one pilot running out of sky. The sky had turned the color of rust. Captain Reagan Holt fought to keep the A-10 sea level. One engine dead, the other coughing black smoke. Every vibration felt like a heartbeat ready to stop. "Widow 7, this is Falcon Ridge." Calloway's voice cracked over the static. "We've cleared the auxiliary runway. You're missing landing gear on the right side, you'll have to belly it in." Reagan's lips twitched in a half smile. "Copy that. Colonel, keep the lights on." Her gauges were useless now, altimeter flickering. Fuel needle buried at 0. She flew by instinct, tracing the dark line of highway toward the base lights miles away. The storm chased her like an animal. Inside the hangar, crews watched radar blips vanish and reappear. Major Briggs stood frozen beside Calloway, headset pressed tight. "Her transponder keeps cutting out," he muttered. "If she stalls, we won't even know where she went down." "Widow 7, altitude 300 feet and falling." "But I've got eyes on the base," she said. Her voice never cracked, not once. The runway shimmered through the dust, glowing like a narrow lifeline. She lined up with it, shutting down the failing engine before it exploded. The last sound in the cockpit was her own breathing. She pulled the throttles back. The A-10 dropped hard, belly scraping concrete, sparks fanning out behind her like a comet's tail. The impact slammed her forward. Metal screamed and bent. The Warthog skidded, then lurched sideways, groaning to a stop near the far end of the strip. For 2 long seconds, nothing moved. Then the canopy blew open, smoke spilling into the air. She climbed out limping, bloody, but standing. Ground crews ran toward her, shouting her call sign like a prayer. The machine she'd flown looked like it had survived a war by eating the other side's bullets. Chief Laird reached her first. "Jesus, Holt, that thing shouldn't even exist anymore." Reagan coughed, half laughing. Guess she didn't get the memo. Behind them, Major Briggs jogged up, helmet still in his hands. For once, there was no arrogance in his face, just disbelief and guilt. He stopped 3 feet away. "Captain Holt," he said, voice low. "I was wrong. About all of it." His words carried across the tarmac. Every mechanic and pilot heard them. "No one here has the right to question whether you belong in that cockpit again." Reagan said nothing. Briggs unpinned his flight patch, the emblem of their squadron, and pressed it against the torn shoulder of her suit. "We don't fly without you," he said quietly. Calloway arrived next, slower, heavier, eyes wet from exhaustion. "Ranger 3 just checked in," he told her. 428 accounted for, not a single body left behind. Reagan nodded once, then we're even. Calloway's expression softened. "You know, you just rewrote what they teach about A-10 survivability. Let's hope no one else has to test it," she replied. He turned to the crew. "Get this bird in a hangar. Document everything. I want it preserved exactly as it is." Someone whispered. "For a museum." Calloway shook his head. "For a classroom." Reagan leaned against the landing gear, breathing through cracked lips. Her hands still shook from adrenaline, but her eyes stayed sharp. Out on the flight line, lightning crawled across the desert. Then a new voice called her name soft, unfamiliar. A woman in a dark uniform stepped out of a command truck. Her insignia blacked out. Captain Holt Reagan straightened. Wary. That depends who's asking. Commander Avery Locke, the woman said. Special Operations Aviation Command. We've been monitoring your feed. She paused, studying the wrecked plane. What you did out there, it wasn't supposed to be possible. Reagan wiped a streak of grime from her cheek. Neither was surviving Al-Qadim Valley. Guess we both like impossible things. Locke smiled faintly. Good, because there's another situation brewing, and we can't put it on paper. Calloway frowned. She just landed half a plane. Let her breathe. Locke's tone didn't change. Sir, I wish I could, but this one can't wait. She handed Reagan a sealed folder marked Confidential Skyline. Reagan looked at it, then at her shredded aircraft. Her reflection warped in the broken metal. Can I shower first? She asked. Locke nodded. 10 minutes. Then we brief. Guess I'll make it 5, Reagan said softly. The commander turned and walked away. Thunder rolled over the base, shaking the hangar doors. Reagan glanced at the wrecked Warthog one last time. Its armor was split open, wings ragged, paint scorched down to bare titanium. She reached out, resting her palm against the cooling metal. Rest easy. Girl, she whispered. You did your job. Then she turned toward the storm. Her silhouette disappeared into the flicker of lightning, steady and unbroken. Behind her, the hangar lights dimmed, and the base went silent again. Because every soul on that flight line knew no one would ever say Captain Reagan Holt didn't belong in the sky. If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.